President Trump was just on stage behind us here at the G7 summit defending that memorandum of understanding that the United States has signed with Iran, opening up negotiations on nuclear issues over the next 60 days. The president said if the talks don't go the way he likes, that the United States will resume bombing in the next 60 days, but he made clear that there's not really an appetite for doing so. He talked about the cost of oil, high prices, the depletion of oil reserves, and warning that if those reserves ran out, there would be bedlam throughout the world, and that he did not want to have a Herbert Hoover presidency. The president made several comments that were divorced from what he initially said when he started this war against Iran back in February, including where he said he wanted to raise their missile industry to the ground. On stage, he advocated for Iran having missiles, saying if their neighbors like Saudi Arabia have them, why shouldn't Iran have them as well? The president also initially said that the Iranian people should rise up and take back their leadership and their government. Instead, on stage here, he praised the current Iranian leadership, which of course is the son of the former supreme leader in Iran. Overall, the president made the case for this agreement, but made clear it may not, in the end, work out over the next 60 days. He seemed to downplay it at the end, arguing that's why the vice president is handling the ceremonial signing of this memorandum of understanding, not the president himself.
It is short and it is vague, but the memorandum of understanding between the United States and Iran shows one key thing, and that's Iran is less afraid of President Trump than he would like them to be. First up, this is not a punishing document for Iran. In fact, it shows they've managed to get President Trump close enough to where they were when they signed a deal with President Obama back in 2015. Not far off at all, really, despite thousands of dead and missiles fired. And that reveals one key thing, that Iran is not really afraid enough of the United States here to have yielded to worse terms in the deal. They think they have survived and have the upper hand going forwards. Secondly, the whole eventual deal has to be signed off by Russia and China through the UN Security Council, of which both have a veto. That could easily derail the whole thing if simply either country wants to inconvenience President Trump. Thirdly, Iran will get cash from this. The, quote, at least $300 billion that some drafts reference, well, that doesn't sound like a cash injection into Iran or really explain where the money comes from. But all sales by Iran are permitted, and that will mean they get cash, probably quite quickly. Finally, the 60 days time frame can be extended. The process can go on as long as either side agrees. And at any time, too, Iran can again complicate the passage through the Strait of Hormuz and hold global energy markets hostage. That gives Tehran enormous leverage over Israel attacking Iran's ally Hezbollah, over the terms of any deal to come, over US promises over their military force levels in the region. Ultimately, it's now clear that if these talks fail, the US fears what Iran will do more than Iran fears the US response.
Well, at first reading, it really seems this memorandum gives a lot to Iran, certainly a lot of potential, economic potential. The country is in desperate financial situation, so immediately they get these waivers, relief that allows them to sell oil, energy products on the international market, make money immediately there. J.D. Vance, Vice President, has said that if Iran does what it's supposed to do, then there is more financial recompense coming along, and included in that is this $300 billion investment development fund for Iran. I don't think anyone expects that kind of money can be put up quickly, and certainly it would be a massive benefit for Iran if that money ever came forward, ever was sort of put into redeveloping Iran. But there are big pluses in here for President Trump. He said it was most important for him that Iran was not going to have a nuclear weapon, and there is that clear commitment. Iran says it's not going to have a nuclear weapon, but there's something in there for Iran. Iran's wanted to have this entitlement to enrich its uranium, and it's got a clause in there that says that the Iran's nuclear programs should remain at status quo. I mean, that's clearly a plus for them. And when you get to the issue of what happens to the highly enriched uranium, which has been very contentious, other issues around Iran's nuclear plans and developments, it is to be discussed. It's very wide and loose, the language about what's being aimed for, what the potential for agreement here is that is stated in the memorandum, at least. We do not see anything specifically in it about Iran's ballistic missiles, or ballistic missile programs, their threat to the countries in the region like Israel. Neither is there anything about Iran's proxies like Hezbollah, which is also a threat to Israel. So the fact that that language isn't in there as something that's going to be agreed specifically to talk about is certainly going to raise eyebrows. Lebanon is in there as part of the overall ceasefire, and of course opening the Strait of Hormuz, periods of time for that to be done and completed, 30 days, 60-day period for the whole duration of all these talks. Clearly it's going to take much, much longer than that. But this overall does seem to be something that's going to give Iran good benefit, economic benefit, if it progresses through as the United States wants it to. Questionable benefits if for the United States about how much Iran actually commits, what the inspection oversight would be for any of that thorniest of issues, the sort of final agreement, the nuclear issues, if you will. There's tough work to be done here.
If you're sitting in Iran, it does seem like a pretty good deal for you. It basically says that the United States and Iran will respect each other's territorial sovereignty and independence and not interfere in each other's internal affairs ever again, i.e. no more threatening regime change in Iran, no more talking about liberating the Iranian people. This must be a big, big disappointment for the Iranian people, who had been promised by both Trump and Netanyahu that part of this war was to help them, once it's over, reclaim or claim their own destiny. So that appears to be off the table. It also suggests that after or sometime during the life of this agreement and the permanent negotiations, that there will be a total lifting of all sanctions, UN sanctions, US sanctions, all sanctions that have been put on Iran over the last decades, that its oil already will receive waivers pending any final deal so that it can be sold. And for the United States, really what the US gets out of this appears, according to this memo, is just status quo ante. In other words, exactly what was on the table on the day before the war started. So opening the Strait of Hormuz, remember that was not closed until the war started, and also apparent sort of negotiations around the nuclear file that apparently were also on the table and underway in the negotiations just before the bombing started. So we're also hearing that this, certainly from Iran's perspective, it appears that they are calling for all US forces to be removed, or they're saying that's an agreement within 30 days of a final agreement. Now, we know that Iran wants all US bases shut down, i.e. removed from the Gulf states, from Qatar, from Saudi, from Kuwait, from Bahrain, UAE, all of that. Is that what this clause means, or what does it mean? We don't really know. Nothing about missiles, nothing about proxies in Lebanon or elsewhere. So clearly there are a lot of unknowns. But if you just read this and take it for what it is, it seems to me stacked much more in Iran's favor. And as everybody said, and as I said, throughout this, several-month war, the result is going to depend on which side can tolerate the most pain. And it appeared that Iran, the regime, could tolerate the most pain, and waited and waited and waited until it was able to put in this memorandum of understanding essentially all the points that it said it wanted.